Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. This is day 2 of multiplying and dividing rational numbers. Now, in this lesson, we will continue to solve word problems that have rational numbers to work with. So in example 1, it says Mr. Moore will have new carpet put on a rectangular floors of 2 rooms in his house. One floor is 12 and a half feet long. The other floor is 15 and 3/4 foot long. Each floor has a width of 10 feet. What is the total area in square feet of the new carpet? Now, remember from previous grades, we know that we can find the area of any rectangular shape by multiplying the length times the width. But in this problem, we have 2 rectangles, so let me draw the first one here. What did it say? Our floor is 12 and a half feet long and has a width of 10 feet. Our other room was a little bit bigger. It had a length of 15 and 3/4 feet, and it also had a width of 10. So what I want to do is find the area of the small rectangle and then add it to the area of the larger rectangle. Now, in our previous lesson, we were changing mixed numbers into improper fractions. In today's lesson, what I'd like us to practice is turning our mixed numbers, if we can, into decimals. So the area of the small rectangle would be 12.5 times 10, and the area of the larger rectangle, 15 and 3/4, is the same thing as 15.75. And we're going to multiply that by 10. Now, the nice thing about multiplying by 10 is it just moves your decimal one place to the right. So 12.5 times 10 becomes 125. And 15.75 becomes 157.5. So now we know the area of the small rectangle is 125 square feet. The area of the larger rectangle is 157.5 square feet. So I'm just going to add those two areas together to get my total area. Now I'll have to add a 0 here as a placeholder. 0 plus 5 is 5. Bring down the decimal. 5 plus 7 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 plus 5 is 8. 1 plus 1 is 2. So our total area would be 282.5 square feet. All right, example 2. 1 year on Venus is equivalent to 224.7 days on Earth. How many days on Earth in decimal form are equivalent to 9.5 years on Venus? Excuse me. Now, just like the last problem, this problem will be a lot easier to work if you take that 9.5 and you write it as a decimal. So 9.5 would be equivalent to 9.5. So to figure out how many days on Earth are equivalent to 9.5 years on Venus, we'll have to multiply these two together. So 224.7 times 9.5. Pause the video and try multiplying this out on your own. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. 5 times 7 was 35. Carry the 3. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 3 is 23, so we're carrying a 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, carrying, whoops, I meant to do that in blue, but we're carrying a 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 1 is 11. Put a 0 under the 5, and now do the same thing with the 9. 9 times 7 is 63, so I'm carrying a 6. 9 times 4 is 36, plus the 6 is 42, so I'm carrying a 4. 9 times 2 is 18, plus the 4 is 22, so I'm carrying a 2. And 9 times 2 is 18, plus the 2 is 20. Now add that together. 5, 6, 4, 3, 1, and 2. Now check to see how many numbers were after the decimal. There were 2 numbers, so we must move our decimal in here 2 times. 1, 2. Put it right there. So it would be 2,134.65 days. All right, example 3. Maya gave the cashier $20 pay for 3 pairs of socks. The cashier gave her $5.03 in change. Each pair of socks cost the same amount. What is the cost in dollars and cents for each pair of socks? So the first thing we have to do is calculate what was the total cost for the socks. So let's take $20 and subtract the change that she was given, minus 503. So we're going to have to fill in some place values. Now, I don't like to subtract across zeros because there's a lot of opportunities for making mistakes. So what I do is this little shortcut is I remove a penny from each number. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because it'll allow me not to borrow. So $20 becomes $19.99, and $5.03 becomes $5.02. So 9 minus 2 is 7, 9 minus 0 is 9, 19 minus 5 is 14. So $14.97 was the total cost for 3 pair of socks. But the question says, well, the question doesn't ask me for the total cost of the socks. It wants to know how much did each pair cost. And we know that she bought 3 pairs. So I'm going to have to take $14.97 and divide it by 3. So 3 will go into 14.97. Bring the decimal straight up. 3 goes into 14 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract and bring down. 3 goes into 29, let's see, 9 times. 9 times 3 is 27. Subtract and bring down. And 3 goes into 27 9 times. So the cost for each pair of socks was $4.99. All right, example 4. Members of the math club held a bake sale to raise money. Cupcakes and cookies were sold. Cupcakes were sold for $1 each. Cookies were sold for 50 cents each. The members sold a total of 288 items. Of the items sold, 2/3 were cupcakes and the remaining were cookies. So question A says how many cupcakes were sold? So we know that 2/3 of how many total items were sold? Let's see. They sold 288 items. So we're multiplying 2/3 times 288. Now, I want to talk about why I'm not using a decimal in this problem. On our last problems, we converted our mixed numbers into decimals. Here, 2/3 is a repeating decimal, 0.6666. So it's not an exact answer. So in that case, I wouldn't want to turn this into a decimal. It would actually make the problem more difficult if I did that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply 2/3 times 288 over 1. So I'm going to multiply 288 times 2. Let's work that out right here. That's 16, 17, 1. That'd be 5. So this is 576. And on the denominator, 3 times 1 is 3. So I want to see how many times will 3 go into 576. 3 goes into 5 1 time. 3 goes into 27 9 times. 3 goes into 6 2 times. So 192 cupcakes are sold. Now, the remaining were cookies. So let's figure out how many cookies were sold. We know they sold a total of 288. So I'm just going to subtract 192. That would be 8 minus 2 is 6. 18 minus 9 is 9. So 96 cookies were sold. So 192 cupcakes, 96 cookies. Now, in the last question, they want to know how much money was raised. All right, so here's what we know about cupcakes. They were $1 each. So if I sold 192 cupcakes and they were $1 each, that means they raised $192 in the cupcakes. Now, the cookies were 96. They sold 96 cookies and they were 50 cents each. So 96 cookies times 50 cents. 0 times 6 is 0. 0 times 9 is 0. Bring the 0. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. 48. Bring your decimal in 2 places, so $48. So I just need to add up 192 plus 48. That would give me $240 is the total amount of money they raised selling the cupcakes and the cookies. All right. Now, when solving problems with multiple choice answers, it's important to develop the skill of estimation. Often, only an estimate is needed to answer the question correctly. Work smarter, not harder. And I hope you're going to see on these next two problems that you sometimes, if you have multiple choice answers, do not need to work the problem all the way out. So let's look at what I'm talking about here. In example 5, it said this week Andre will practice with his band for 1.5 hours on Monday, 1 3/4 hours on Tuesday, and 2 hours on Wednesday. Next week he will practice with his band for the same amount of hours. So in week 1, he's going to practice 1.5 hours plus 1 3/4 hours plus 2 hours. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite this 1.5 as 1.5. I'm going to round 1 3/4 to 2 plus 2. So in week 1, he practiced approximately 2 plus 2 is 4, and 4 plus 1.5 is 5. Now, again, this is not exactly because we rounded that 1 3/4 hours to 2. So this number is a little bit too big, okay? But it's an estimate. So if he practiced approximately 5.5 hours in the first week, that means he also practiced 5 hours in the second week. So I need to add 5.5 plus 5.5, and that would give me 11. So approximately 11. Now look at your answer choices. Do you see that there's one answer choice that's close to that? And that would be B. Now I could work the problem out the long way, but I think you can see that just estimating our answer was really sufficient to work this problem and get the correct answer. All right. Example 6. Frankie paid for 5 pallets of grass to be delivered. Each pallet of grass cost $129.95, and the delivery charge was $76.20. What's the total amount that Frankie paid? Now, normally to work this problem, we would have to multiply 5 times $129.95 plus $76.20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this $129.95. I'll round it to $130, and I'll round the $76.26 to just $76. So now I don't have a lot of decimals to multiply. I'm just going to multiply the 130 times 5. So that would be 650. And then I'm going to add 650 plus 76. So that would be approximately seven. I'm going to put a wavy equal sign here for approximately $726. Now, if you look at your answer choices, again, there's only one that was close. So we did not necessarily need to work this out the long way. We were able to arrive at our answer with estimation. Estimation is a really important skill that you develop. It will help you solve problems faster on standardized tests. And even though it won't work every time, a lot of times it can help you eliminate 2 or 3 bad answers. All right, and that concludes today's lesson, Multiplying and Dividing Rational Numbers, Day 2.